What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about photographing events and how to get prepared. Now, a lot of people don't even think about the first step in getting prepared for photographing an event. Now, I have an event today, and I just went over some of the thoughts in my head. I was like, hey, why don't I just make a video about this? Now, this does not apply to everybody. Everything that I say is not going to apply to everybody, and there might be even more things that apply to people because everybody has a different event, different client needs, different photography equipment, different ways of how they want to shoot. But I'm just going to go through kind of general bare bones things, and I'm probably going to make another video about this. I'm probably going to go into depth in another video. I don't want to spend too much time. I just want to give you guys something to think about, and this might even jog your memory to more things to think about. Now, if you have more things you want me to talk about in the comments, go ahead and put that in the comments below. Let me know. Hey, it's like, hey, Devin, you forgot about this. Hey, stupid, you forgot about this. Hey, you might want to put this on here. Thumb up, thumb down. Let me know exactly how you're feeling, how you're thinking, but let's get right into this. And I'm only going to separate this into about 3 different main categories. It'll be first equipment, then the second will be venue/location, and the third one will be traveling. Now, give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring my stand up here. I'm gonna be looking down here at my stand at my list of things. But the first thing I put on my list was equipment, of course. And because when you're at home or at wherever you stay or wherever your equipment is in your studio, your office, or whatever, you have the option to look for certain equipment or bring certain equipment and put them in your bag, or put the things in your cases or wherever you want to put your equipment to travel it to the spot that you need to be at. But being at home gives you a train of thought that's so much easier than being in the field or talking to somebody or rushing to get it done. Being at home allows you to think through everything that you need, making checklists and whatever you need to do to get your job done the best way you can possibly do it. Being at home gives you that time to think and think things through. Whether if you're a professional and you're doing consultations, you can start to think about the things you need. So by the time it comes to actually putting your stuff together in your bags and your cases, you already have thought these things through while you're doing the consultation. If you are a hobbyist photographer or somebody who's beginning or doesn't need everything or certain specific equipment to get certain looks and things of that nature, then you can actually just think about it while you're at home in a general sense based off of the way you want to shoot. Now, when you're thinking about equipment, the first thing I think about is the camera and the camera system. I shoot with Panasonic, Sony, Canon, Nikon, pretty much all the main high brands as far as sales, camera sales, and all the things that they offer. I also shoot with Sony. So those are the things that I'm thinking about when I first started to get my equipment. What camera do I need that's going to give me what I need? What camera system that's going to give me what I need as far as lenses and things of that nature? So those are the things I'm thinking about. So if I'm going out to shoot a sports event, I'm probably going to roll with Canon. And the reason why I'm rolling with Canon is because I have the most Canon lenses. I have Canon bodies that can shoot 8 frames a second and can buffer really fast, have dual processors like the 7D Mark I, which processes images faster, which means when I shoot an image, it'll go ahead and process it, whether it's RAW or JPEG. I can shoot a whole bunch of JPEGs if I wanted to without the camera having to think. I can shoot a whole bunch of RAW images. Now, it's a little slow on the 7D and the 80D side, but I have those cameras that can do that, and I'm used to working with those buffers and not having so many out of focus images. I'm used to the ratio of in focus to out of focus images. I can be confident in whether I'm getting the shot or not getting the shot. Those are some of the things that I think about when I'm thinking about camera systems. And then I think about the color science and what the images look like once they come out of the camera and I put them in RAW. All these things, especially low light ability. If I'm using the 7D Mark I might not want to use it because if I'm in a low light situation and I'm shooting sports, those pictures are going to look like crud. I might need to rent a 7D Mark II or use the AED, which has heaven better low light noise reduction capabilities, and without having to thirst the camera for light. And even when I'm at 2.8, I'm still thirsting for light with the 7D Mark One. So I might use the 80D, or I might borrow the 6D or the 5D Mark III. Anything with the Canon system, even if I don't have it, I might need to rent it because I need a certain high quality of image. Depends on what kind of gig I'm doing. Like I said, it depends on who you are and what you have at your disposal. Lenses. If I'm in a dark situation or if I'm in a portrait situation, I might need, 2.8s, your 1.8s, your f2s, your wide aperture lenses that allow oodles of light to come through that camera so that camera can operate faster. That camera can give me a shallower depth of field. Typically, those are the ones I'm going with anyway, because in most situations, people want a shallow depth of field, a blurry background, a look that looks professional, and typically the faster, wider aperture lenses give you that, a more professional look, and they tend to have less optical deficiencies. Some of the older ones have, chromatic aberration and vignetting at 1.2 and 1.4 and 1.8 and 2.0 and 2.8. But after 2.8, usually most lenses are pretty sharp at f4 and stuff like that, and you're stopping it all the way down. But those are some of the things to think about when you're packing your equipment. I think about all those things, and then I think about batteries. The next thing is just being able to have battery and battery power. If I'm going to use a strobe off camera, not only does the batteries in my camera matter, which I kind of assume that you already thought about your camera's batteries, but you're going to have those charged. You're going to have your AA's or AAA's or whatever your light source goes off, whether you're using a speed light or like my Flashpoint 600 Explorer, that uses its own lithium ion battery pack. So I have to charge that up separately. And then I have to charge up my own AA batteries. And then I have to charge up my camera's batteries. And I use inner loop rechargeable batteries, so I have 4 different chargers for my inner loop batteries, because I have like 50 of those. So if I'm trying to really get a whole bunch charged at the same time, I have 4 chargers that take 4 batteries at a time. 4 times 4 is 16. Then you're going to be able to charge 16 at a time, and then if I'm doing it overnight, I can charge 16 at night, wake up in the morning, charge 16 during the day. 16 plus 16 is 32. I'll have 32 batteries at my disposal that have a full charge. I always keep 2 speed lights on me, one as a main, one as a backup, especially when you're using third-party speed lights. You're bringing an extra light source on. I haven't been able to get another battery for my Flashpoint Explorer, but bringing another battery is always good for a big mono light like the Flashpoint Explorer. And having a backup speed light, you always want to have a double of everything that can possibly go wrong. I don't typically bring 2 bodies because bodies are extremely rugged. So if I'm using the 80D, I might just bring the 80D. I never bring the 7D, and I've never had an issue like that as far as bringing a backup camera as a redundant backup. I really would rather have a dual card slot Canon because I have the cards fail on me more than I have the bodies failing on me, and that's saying something. So being a backup body is not my thing. Having another card slot would be my thing if I had that ability. But I don't have that ability, so let's move on to the next thing, which would be memory, of course. Memory, I'm usually rolling with SanDisk, reliable brands, things that don't have that much of an issue corrupting in the field, losing your pictures. Imagine if you're on a wedding, things of that nature. Everybody's situation is different, but nobody wants a card to be corrupt while they're in the field or doing anything, because that makes your life harder. People trying to sue, people trying to come at your neck, trying to cut your throat because you lost their pictures and you're supposed to be a professional and know all these things. Then on a side note, you could have a backup computer. You could. I typically have a way of editing it if I don't have a computer, or I can get a computer fast enough so it's not that much of an issue. But if you're editing pictures and you need another computer or a backup computer, that's something you might want to be thinking about. Also with memory, how much memory do you need? Are you shooting RAW? Are you shooting JPEG? How much memory do you use on average? On average, I use about 60 gigs per shoot, whether it's video, whether it's photos. I use 60 gigs at least. So I always have 64 gigs around, just laying around, like Tony Northrup says. Have them in your bag. Have them somewhere where you can actually look at them and say, okay, it's there. If I need it, bang. So on average, I always keep 64s around me. High speed, class U3, class 10 SD cards. And the reason why is because I need to be able to shoot 4K or shoot pictures and not have my camera say, "Oh, well, this card is not compatible with the shooting that you're trying to do." I don't have time for that. Clients are asking me for stuff. They're asking me, "Why can't I do this?" They need me ready, there, not asking questions, not being afraid, being able to capture the moment when it comes, because that's all they're worried about. And you only have a little bit of time as a photographer to actually master that moment. So having excuses about not having these things is not what you want. Now, lighting. I already told you I usually like speed lights. Tonight, when I'm shooting this event, I'll be using the 6D Mark I. I'll be using the Flashpoint Explorer, and I'll also be using the Yongnuo 600 EXRT Mark I or Mark II flash. I've already lost one last week, by the way. Those things are so unreliable. That's why you keep two working ones, or relatively working ones, because I don't think they ever work completely coming out of the shop or coming out of the manufacturing plant. But that's another story. Anyway, I have those 4 or 5 or wherever I left off on my fingers pieces of equipment, and I know that I need batteries. I've already been charging my batteries all day for the speed lights. Matter of fact, I said 2 because you want to have enough batteries for multiple speed lights and multiple recharging of batteries or replacing of batteries. And replace your batteries at the right time, not at the wrong time. Don't wait for it to go all the way dead and then try to replace it. That's not something that you want to do, because you're going to look like you're not doing things right. So I know for this event that we're going to have a break between the time where they walk the red carpet and walk inside the building to wait for the performances to start. So I know for a fact that between the time where the majority of people walk in the building and walk the red carpet, there's a time for me to switch my batteries out if I'm going to be using it inside the venue and not outside of the venue. So lighting, and then at the end of the day, when it comes to equipment, how much equipment do you need? How much are you going to be walking around? How much are you going to be traveling? Who's going to steal your stuff? Do you have insurance for your stuff? How much of a likelihood for it to be broken? My boy called me the other night and said, "Hey, Devin, can I borrow your flash? My flash got hit by somebody and it does not work anymore, and I need to go to an event right now. Can I borrow your flash?" Immediately, I was like, "Oh yeah, you can borrow it, you can borrow it." Things like that happen all the time. You always have to have backups, but at the same time, you have to understand how much equipment you're going to bring in the first place. So if you're going to bring all these backups, including your primary equipment, how much equipment are you going to need? Who's going to steal it, break it, this, that, and the other? And can you still keep shooting after things like that happen? Because you got to suck it up sometimes. I know sometimes I'll lose some stuff in the field, or it'll get broken or lost or stolen and stuff like that. I got to keep working. So I know if all your equipment is stolen, you like, how are you going to keep working if everybody stole all my stuff? But 90% of the time, I keep my camera actually on my body. It's strapped onto me, because how are you capturing the moment if you're not having the camera on you? But at the same time, you also have to I have a bag on me that I keep on me all the time. It makes people think that I'm a photographer. It makes people think that I'm there for a reason. And it makes people think that I care more about doing the job than it is being a part of the actual event, which makes people think I'm more professional. Now, I can chill and be around with people and kind of mosey around them and have fun with them at the event to loosen them up. Because if everybody thinks you're just there to and they see the camera slapped up to your face the whole time, that's a bad thing. Now, if they see you running around all the time with the camera, that's a good thing, because they think, oh, you're trying to do your best to capture the moment. But if you're walking up on them and you got the camera glued to your face, but if you can capture that moment and get that camera right off your face, and you're still walking around looking for the next moment to take a picture, that looks better than somebody just walking around with the camera stuck up to their face and somebody's face all the time, because that's more off-putting. But people get used to it as a photographer. If you can take a picture, hey, you guys get together, be very transparent about what you're doing, and don't look like a creeper or a stalker or anything like that. Even at events where they know you're going to be there, they need to be comfortable with the camera, especially if they're dressed in an attire that they haven't, like today I'm going to go out to an event. They got to be comfortable with you, so you have to understand how your equipment looks to the people and how much equipment you're going to be using and keeping it on you. I got off a little bit, but we're going to the next category, which is the venue or location. You need to understand the venue and the location. You have space. Space is a huge thing in photography. Now, when you think about space, you need to know about your lenses. What focal distance do I need to pull off a nice professional shot? Now, if I'm taking group pictures, that eliminates a whole bunch of my space. Now, if it eliminates a whole bunch of my space, that means I got to get wider as a photographer. I'm shooting at the likes of 18 millimeters, 24 millimeters. Now, if I'm using a crop frame or full frame sensor, there's a difference. Now, if I'm shooting a crop frame sensor, 24 becomes mid-30s, maybe even close to 40 millimeters. Now, depending on what camera you have, whether it has a 1.5x crop, 1.6x crop for Canon, 1.5 for Nikon, and everybody else. But you have to understand, what does that do to my picture? It makes me come closer, which means I don't have a lot of room for group pictures depending on what space I'm in. So I might need to have a 11 or 16 millimeter lens. But if you're taking portraits or pictures of people, you can't have people on the edges of your lenses if you're pushing it all the way back and making it as wide as possible, because it's going to make a fisheye or distortion effect, making people at the edges of your lenses look bold, like they're being wrapped around your lens itself. So those are some of the things you need to worry about. And then correction in Photoshop is something you need to worry about if you're running low on space and low on lenses that can get you that wide. So you might need to crop in or tell people to move a certain way and get certain types of group images, because they just line up for the group images. They don't know exactly what you're dealing with as a photographer, especially when you have the camera. When they see that camera, you're the photographer, so you should know. You have to think about all these things before it even happens, so you can prevent it from happening. And this is when you exert your authority as a photographer. Say, hey, I need you to come in close. You're not in the shot. Bang, you're not in the shot. Come in close, come in close. And then they'll start to respect you, understand you, and even try to be like, hey, guys, he's the photographer. He knows. Get up there. Move this way. Move this way. Move this way. Because the picture is that long. But if you spend more time trying to get the picture exactly the way you want to based off of the space that you have and the lenses that you have, so think about it before you get there, and you'll be in a better situation as far as thinking about the location. Now that you're thinking about lighting, how are you going to light? Where light is going to be placed according to space. Certain light sources can only work in certain spaces. So I use the Godox 47.2 inch octabox when I go to this location here today. Now, when I go there, I know that I have enough space for this 47-inch octabox in the lobby. I do not have a spot for it in the actual venue where they'll be performing. So I will not be using it in the venue, but in the lobby, I will have it there. When I have it there, I'll have as much space as I need. I'll have the stand. The stand has the footprint space that it needs. I can raise it up 13 feet without the ceiling being scraped. I can make all the modifications to my images that I want to without having to worry about moving this light source. It's the perfect spot for my 47.2 inch octabox at an event. But for those of you who are using speed lights, we have to understand where we're going to bounce the speed light off of. If we're bouncing, do we have a modifier? These things we need to know based off of the event space that we have. Not only do we have to think about equipment wise, but does the event space have a white ceiling that we can use? Because if it has purple or bronze or golden ceilings, we can't bounce the flash off of that because it'll color cast onto our models. The number of people that's at the event. You need to know how many group pictures are you going to be taking. If they all group together all as one, what are you going to do as a photographer? And do you have a wide enough lens? How many people are going to be there? How many people are going to be there for you to market to and give your cards to? And then how many people are there that are on your side or not on your side? Maybe even looking to steal your equipment. So those are some things that you need to think about as a photographer. How many people are there and how it's going to affect your event. Also, different venues. Today, I'm going to be going to different venues in one location. So one big location has two different venues, or three different venues, as a matter of fact. These three different venues are the outside, the walking of the carpet. That's going to be outside. My exposure is going to be dramatically different. Does my camera have a filter? Does my camera have high-speed sync? Am I going to be using another light source to make sure that location is well exposed? And then do I have the battery power to muster that over a long period of time? Notice that if I'm using high-speed sync, which I am, it's going to take 10 times as much, light power out of my light, because high-speed sync works in a really, really light, a power-hungry way for that light. And then how much power am I going to need to overpower the sun? Is the sun high in the sky? What time of day is it going to be? Those are some of the things you need to think about as a photographer, especially if you're going to multiple locations that feature outside, because if outside is one of your variables, the time of day is one of your variables, the light coverage is one of your variables. Is it blinding sun from high noon? Is it cloud coverage? Is it golden hour? What is twilight hour? What are we dealing with here that I'm going to have to photograph? And then you're going to have to go to, for me, inside the lobby area, which I'm going to have to use my speed light, or use my my light again, because I'll be using my light to counteract the sun for outside images. This will probably use a high-speed sync, which is going to eat a bit of my battery. That's why I use the Flashpoint Explorer. Back to equipment. I have to have the right piece of equipment for the right type of thing that I'm trying to do. Now, I do not have ETTL. I have manual on this flash. Now, it does come as an ETTL, but I saved myself the $300, and I got the manually tuned version. Now, I have a wizard on top of my camera that I can then tune and fine-tune. But if I know that they're walking down the red carpet, I need to, I want to call it exposure trap them in a specific location. I know that the last picture that I'm going to be able to get is when they're closest to me at the camera. When they're closest to me, I need to meter for that closest location. I don't care that if they're coming down the red carpet and the exposure's a little bit darker when they're coming down, because that might be a keeper image, that might not be a keeper image. Or I can put an X where they should stand and meter for that location and call it a day. That might make it easier for me. Or if I want them to be more free and relaxed, I might have them just walk down a red carpet and exposure trap them right where the camera's closest, where I can get the closest focus at. And then I'll know that if they have a keeper image while they're walking further away from the light source, that all I have to do is boost it up in Photoshop, and I'll be shooting RAW, which means it takes more memory, which means I have to have the card and the hard drive and the computer to be able to get exactly what I want to out of this event. That's just outside. Now we're going inside to where people are now congregating, eating in the lobby area, waiting for the actual event to start in the theater. While they're walking around and they're eating, congregating, talk to each other. Now, mind you, people don't really like pictures of themselves eating. They'll try to put it away or put a drink away or stuff like that to make the picture, especially if it's not a candid pose and you can't get away with it because they see you with your big DSLR or mirrorless camera and big lens. You're going to have to know exactly how to expose that. So I'm going to have the Magmod, the sphere-ish kind of rubberish sphere, and then I'm going to be bouncing or shooting through that sphere, which is going to make it a little bit more flexible for me, because if I'm shooting with the mag bounce, it's going to spread light everywhere, and it's going to be a little bit more unmitigated or uncontrolled. So I'm shooting with the sphere, so from image to image to image, I get a pretty, I want to say, equivalent exposure, so I don't have to keep worrying about it in Photoshop. Another thing that I'm worried about when I'm shooting images, especially with a young newer that doesn't really know how to meter all that great, especially if you put it on a camera and a modifier that it doesn't even know the modifiers on top of it and things of that nature. So those are some of the things you need to think about. That's when I'm in the lobby shooting with a speed light. Shoot it at a focal distance that it'll know, and shoot it at ETTL, but use exposure compensation liberally because it's a third-party speed light. And then I'm going to go into the theater. Now the theater is going to be filled with people, and not only that, I got to understand if I hit somebody or somebody hits my third-party flash and it stops working, I'm out $100 for that third-party flash. And I got to think about white balance, not only for outside, I forgot to say that, but I have to think about white balance and settings for inside the lobby, and then white balance and settings for inside the theater, because these are three dramatically different exposure and white balance areas. Now you have the outdoor. The outdoor has the sun. The sun has its own white balance. Now, if I'm using my Flashpoint Explorer with the sun shoots a little bit more orange than the Flashpoint Explorer. Daylight balance Flashpoint Explorer, I believe it's about 5,500 Kelvin coming out of the Flashpoint Explorer. And then on top of that, you got a sun that's probably high in the sky, maybe covered by clouds. It'll get a little bit bluer, but if it's unmitigated, because it's always varying, you want to make sure that you keep that in check. I could go auto white balance, but I'd rather go custom white balance, because when they're walking down the red carpet, they're walking into an awning, which is going to block the sun, put them in shade, and put them at the mercy of my Flashpoint Explorer, or at the main light, as the Flashpoint Explorer so much more than the sun. Now the sun will be a strong light, but it will be a backlight. It will be a fill or kicker, if you will. It will not have the power of the Flashpoint Explorer once they get closer to the Flashpoint Explorer. So I want to custom white balance and probably X them off at a spot on the ground and say, hey, here, stand here. My exposure is going to be on point for the most part. If I expose for the Flashpoint and not the sun is going to be, well, I'm going to have to expose for the sun and high speed sync, but the sun is not going to cut the high speed sync too much. If the clouds come over, it'll make the high speed sync, because if you high speed syncing, that means you're using the shutter speed to control your ambient light. And then if I'm shooting at 5,000th of a second or 1,000th of a second, now you might have some issues with the sun ramping up exposure, but I don't think that if I'm using the 6D, it has a lot of dynamic range on it. And since I'm using the 6D, another thing, it only has 9 autofocus points. So I need to X them off and have them staying in one spot because that sucker can't focus. So that's another thing to think about. But going back to the high speed sync and ambient shutter speeds, the sun probably won't reach an exposure if I, auto expose for the shutter speed and then use it in manual mode. The sun probably won't overbear the shutter speed to the point where the raw image can't bring those highlights down in post. All the things I'm thinking about for the event going on. But that's the general gist of using your camera in the field, knowing what to bring, how to bring it, things of that nature. Oh yeah, and going back to the inside venue. So this is the 3 venues. That was the outside venue, the walking of the red carpet. The inside venue, them congregating and eating together and doing all this stuff. That's the internal. That's with the speed light. That's the inside lobby area. Now when we get into the venue of the actual performance location, where we spend the majority of our time, no flashes required, or no flashes is needed, or its flash is prohibited, because these performers, they don't know where you're going to be sitting in an audience, and it might distract them, might make them fall off the stage. Who knows? Talk about break a leg. But they don't know, and they're told that there won't be no flash photography. Now there's little cell phones with little cell phone cameras. They can probably get away with that. But if I'm using a 187 guide number speed light, they probably, in the front row, they're probably not ready for that. They might fall off the stage or get distracted or be bewildered. No telling what's going to happen. But since I can't use flash, I am going to be using ambient light. And then ambient light with stage lighting, I don't think the stage lighting is going to change all that much, but during the theater performances they do. But this is an arts award ceremony, so typically it's going to go back to the same lighting setup when they're handing out the awards, which is going to be about 60 to 70% of the actual event day. It's kind of like the Grammys, where you get awards and then you also have performances. The performances might have lighting changes, but the awards really won't have lighting changes. So I'll have to change my probably going to be changing my aperture varyingly, because the shutter speed, I want to have tight, tack sharp images. I'm going to have a full frame camera. I'm going to have to be pushing that shutter speed up, which means my ISO is going to have to go up. And because they're going to have moving dancers on the stage, I know they're going to have. So ISO goes up, shutter speed goes up. Or shutter speed goes up because there's moving dancers, ISO goes up. All these things are extremely important to having a professional looking image in your events. So the last thing you want to think about is traveling. Okay, like I said, you're going to have to bring a whole bunch of stuff if you need to bring a whole bunch of stuff. If you're rolling real simple, don't worry about most of the equipment that I talked about. How long is it going to take you to get there? Is your equipment going to be moving around? How long will you be traveling? Are you going to be on your feet the whole time, or are you going to be moving with your feet? And how is your equipment going to go with you? Are you risking a chance for somebody stealing it? Is somebody there to help you? All these things are very important when it comes to traveling. I know I held you guys long, but this is just remotely some of the things that I'm thinking about when actually getting ready for an event, let alone having creative lighting effects, let alone using practicals and different things that I can do to make this event look better, and let alone talking about my style and what lenses I'm going to use for specific looks, like my Tamron 90mm 2.8. It is an amazing lens. It's even sharper than the Canon 70-200 2.8 version 1. So I use that interchangeably because it's lighter and it gets me closer to an image, gets me a perspective, a look that you can't get anywhere else. These are not even things about getting prepared for the event. Those are just some of the things that I think about while I'm there at the event, trying to make, or I can think about them now, trying to make everything look perfect and pretty much get the memory that my clients and the people that I'm shooting for deserve. I'm done with CenturyFX Studios. Thanks for watching. If you watched all the way through, I know I'm running for like 30 minutes now, but I'm really passionate about photography, and I want you guys to be able to be prepared, be knowledgeable about what you want to do and how you want to do it. I should probably make a cell phone version for this because a lot of people just use their cell phones for the event, and it's probably going to be a lot shorter. So that's coming up next. Thanks for watching, guys.